you look at Timothy and look at other books, they speak of explicitly Gnostics in the church in the very first century. Right after the death of Jesus, within a couple of years, you've got Gnostics lying and spreading heresy in the church. The apostles had the same problem. And the Catholic Church had the problem in the 10th and 11th centuries. It had serious problems. And then these things just kept cropping up, and they've just come back. But we'll talk about that. Okay, so that's next Sunday. Winston, thanks for the time and energy you spend on research. Thank you. Yeah, I spent a lot of time on this. He was declared a saint for his warning and fighting the infiltration. Yeah, we're going to look at that. So, okay, so now, sorry, where was I? I was here somewhere. Oh, I'm nearly done. Okay, so... Okay, so let's see. I'm on page 24. So just to reiterate some of these ideas, liberation theology is Gnostic. Yeah. So let's see if I missed anything. Up until recently, society always wanted to protect children until they reached the age of reason. Now it's let them cut it. Yeah, in fact, I mean, look, they all say, well, child should be 16. Now you see that like Tavistock Institute and others, they've been wanting to change kids at the age of 3. Like why? Well, because if you are not a woman and you can't have kids, you have to indoctrinate someone else's kids, right? They can't have their own children, so they have to go after yours. It's that simple. Okay, so let's talk. So, let's see. So, okay, the weight of 1,600 years of witnesses cannot easily be dismissed without cause, but that's exactly what this man here did. He just dismissed every single church theologian before him. And then moral and factual truths. We believe as Christians that moral and factual truths do exist. And history provides evidence to determine which positions are sounder than others. Persuasiveness alone does not determine truth. Authority does not determine truth. Martin Luther's authority does not determine truth. We have to consider the evidence, and we have to be methodical. Right? So the Catholic canon, in my view, has a superior claim to being the valid biblical canon. The Catholic canon was universally accepted for over 1,600 years with clear historical attestation. Rick Hempstead says, Lloyd always takes his time to make these great presentations. No, thank you. I'm very, very appreciative, very grateful. Thank you. I hope I'm not annoying too many people. I understand that what I say is controversial. As I said, it's going to rub people the wrong way perhaps. But people are going to get upset no matter what I say. That's what I've discovered. So what the heck? I'm just going to say it, and that's it. So you've got a canon accepted for 1,600 years with clear historical attestation. The Protestant canon lacks this attestation and was a novel position and brand new idea that came out of nowhere when adopted. The Catholic canon has clear support from the church fathers and the church councils, linking it directly to the apostles. The Protestant canon lacks completely this historical lineage. The secret testimony of the Spirit and these theological motivations behind the Protestant canon undermine its authority. They suggest it was not derived from evidence. The Catholic canon doesn't face this objection. This is not to say that there's incredibly good arguments against, complete nonsense, but really good sounding arguments by various groups against. Atheists make some brilliant sounding arguments, right? I remember in the past when I knew none of this stuff, I was intimidated by what atheists said because I was like, I don't know how to answer this. Now it's like it's all trash, right? Atheism has no legs to stand on. It has feet of poo, never mind clay, right? So, yeah, but once you know, things change. But the Catholic canon doesn't have the objection, it doesn't face the objections of the Protestant canon. So, the Catholic canon contains books referenced by New Testament authors and found with other scriptures for centuries. So, you've got the Didache references the Deuterocanon, right? These early church fathers referenced the Deuterocanon. So, you've got all of this additional support, right? And when you go Bible alone, you are literally throwing out hundreds of years, hundreds of pages, thousands of people's evidence. You're tossing it aside and going, it's not in the Bible. Well, like I said, you got to throw the women out of the church when it gets to the sacraments, gets to the Eucharist, because that's not in the Bible either. That's a stupid position. That's an incredibly stupid position, right? So the Protestant rejection of the Deuterocanon requires really bad explanations, really problematic explanations. So the Catholic canon has a more internally consistent and compelling basis for determining canonicity, right? Let me add a point here. When you look at the Protestant canon versus the Catholic canon, right? You've got the Old Testament and the New Testament, and you've got what's called the intertestamental gap, a 500-year gap within the Protestant canon. So therefore, this introduced a couple of things. It introduced, for some reason, the name just popped out of my head, like just as I was thinking of it. I had it in my head, and then it suddenly, dispensationalism, right? In other words, screw those Jews. They're written out of the book. Forget the Jews. We've not taken over. Let's go. Yeah. If you want to kill the Jews, that's just great. The Jews aren't important. Replacement theology. So that allowed for dispensationalism. There are different ages, and the Jews' age is over, and we really should kill them all, which is what some Christians do believe and do say. I hear that a lot. And Hamas says that too. And this is where that comes from, because there's this 500-year gap, and they go like, well, yeah, these guys are great. Not again. We'll just get back to, so this led to dispensationalism. Whereas when you look at, and also, it writes the Jews out. It allows room to mistreat the Jews. Whereas when you get to the Catholic canon, the gap, the intertestamental gap between Old and New Testament is only about 150 years. And because because there's these books in between and these stories in between, right, what happens is you now see a unity. You see that the Catholic Church has taken over, in a sense, from the Jewish temple and the Jewish practice. I'm going to phrase this very badly. I have notes on it somewhere. I have posted on it in the past, but basically the whole priesthood, that idea has now carried over into the Catholic tradition, and therefore there is a church. The church remains. It's not an invisible congregation. You have a physical church. Christians must belong to a church, to the church. A physical church, not an invisible church, not a private church, not your own personal pope and church, the church. And the church has that authority. And you see that because you have these other books that carry across the tradition. Catholic canon, you dismiss this tradition, it disappears. So let's continue. Hopefully that makes sense. So let me see. So while both canons face uncertainty and intelligent scholars do disagree, the evidence from history and the church favors the Catholic canon as biblically authorized. And the Protestant position appears to stand or fall not on evidence, but on theological presuppositions and a rejection of authority. It collapses into relativism. It's because of my feelings. Truth is not relative. Facts matter in determining sound doctrine. Remember, the Bible doesn't have contradictions. The Bible is, God does not deal in confusion, except Protestants seem to most definitely deal in contradiction and confusion. So then you're probably not biblical.